Hey, Arthur, so you spent 16 years alone, right? What do you mean by that, Meliodas? Just a bit lonely. I got a wife, Bond got a wife, heck, even King got a wife. And Gother doesn't necessarily care about stuff like that. He got kids, though. But, what have you been doing for these past 16 years? Well, Meliodas, you should know this. My right hand is very well exercised. Oh my word, it's so big! Thank you to our final patron, Strawbones, Redwolf4765, Midnight Gemlord, and Artgoon555. Now, before we hop into this breakdown and review of Chapter 80 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, I feel like it's been a minute since I did that. Please go ahead and leave your on this chapter in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure you hit that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do a Patreon down below. You can support before as low as count them, $1 a month. You get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. Some of that exclusive content including the live reaction to this very chapter. Now, let's hop into 2 weeks ago's poll. So, 2 weeks ago, I ended up asking y'all a very, very simple question. Mainly because last chapter, it did, to say the very least, it did a lot. It did a lot. And of course, I asked a question that really, I believe 100% of the vote should have gone towards one party. Because the question was simple, it was clean cut, and there's no other way to deny it, there's no other way to look at it. I'm sorry, if you still don't believe it, you just must be blind, reading a different manga, or just in flat out denial. But my question for y'all, 2 weeks ago, was Four Knights fans, I must know, after the last chapter, is Lance him? Pick a choice and tell me why down below. And out of 161 votes, 83%, which I think is too low of a percentage. I know we could have more landslide votes than this. I've seen it before. But with 83% of the vote, we have, yes, he is him. No one is better. He is the best. And it's just confirmed. It's just hard confirmed. I'm sorry if for anyone who's in denial, I need you to wake up. All 17% of y'all who said he is not him, I'm pretty sure y'all were memeing. Maybe because y'all probably got the joke behind that. But still, it's just factoids at this point. There's no more ambiguity. Y'all were asking for the feats, we got the feats. Y'all were asking for more statements, we got more statements. Y'all are asking for everything else, and we got it, bro. Literally, when I tell you there are 5 different Lance versus battles in the works already. They're on deck. They are pre-prepared and ready to go. Yeah, he's a demon. He's a monster. He's a beast of different varieties and calibers. So he is in fact him. And I want you to know that, respect that, breathe it in. Take every last whiff of it if you need to. Inhale chapter 79 and chapter 80 into your brain and keep it there if you need to. But just remember this, above all other things, Lancelot is in fact him. However, thank you so much for participating in that poll. Please make sure you get your input in on tomorrow's poll, dropping at 12 p.m. to make sure your input is included for next week's review. Now, let's hop into Chapter 80. What's up, guys? I got the pencil here, and here we are to do a review of Chapter 80 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, which is known as King Arthur versus Lancelot. And, I'm definitely a guy who's don't take cover text all too seriously. I don't, me personally, because it leads to more trouble than it's worth, and in the manga volumes, they're never there. And I typically use the volumes when I'm scaling, so take this with a grain of salt. But I just want y'all to realize on this chapter page, on the title page, it says Arthur is overpowered already. Meet the greatest of the Four Knights of the Apocalypse, Lancelot. So I'm not just saying It's the raw car facts that are in the chapters themselves. But even outside the chapters, they're saying he's the greatest. So if you're in denial, I hate to say it, you're just wrong at this point. You're just blasphemous. You're a blasphemer. You're a blasphemer. You're a fool, and you just need to accept it. I'm sorry. Enough of that. Let's hop right into the chapter itself. So we open up, and we do get to see that everyone is biggity bamboozled. The fact that Lancelot literally has his foot on Arthur's chest. And to be fair, even I mentioned a little bit last review, but yo, I believed Lance was him. Do not get me wrong. I have been y'all got me on me so hard for saying it. So I have been supporting Lance. Not the other thing. I've been supporting Lance since day one. I always thought he was Himothy, and he has proven himself to be Himothy him. But it's to a degree that still is a bit mind-boggling to me. I've had 2 weeks to sit on it. But as a wise man pointed out in the comment section, yeah, I've been making a whole ton of videos just talking about it. Because it's crazy to the level of Himothy that he is. He's Himothy Turner. Himothy Herner. Golly gee willikers put the final villain on his back. That's different. And I love how Donnie and Nasians, right? Admittedly, if I were to make a tier list, right, of character levels of power and general importance, Gawain and Percy, who are currently being supported by Donnie and Nasians, they wouldn't even be the same tier. They'd probably be a whole chunk of a tier, probably maybe even 2 chunks of a tier. Yeah, probably 2, because I'd have the individual Chaos Commandments, and then I would have the Holy Knight level fighters, and then I would have Donnie and Nasians. It's amazing to even see them be what? Nani? I don't believe it. He outmatched King Arthur in a fight? Yes, because he's Himothy Herner. What can I say? He is just him. And I love how they're being forced to acknowledge that too. And I don't know, something just, because this is really repetition, right? We've seen it. We know what it is. But I feel Nakaba, he even knows that, yo, people are definitely going to have, a shocked reaction to this. So let me just build the narrative as much as I can with as much reiteration as I can. So everyone knows Lance is him. And we get to see that Percy, you gas yourself up a little bit too much here, right? Because he says, he did that to a guy way out of mine and Tristan's league. To be fair, I'm not sure how. Not even. The spare Percy really didn't do that good against Tristan when Tristan was just in goddess mode. So Percy, I'm not sure if you got some new secret amps that you're wondering about, but you aren't even in Tristan's league. Tristan is way out of your league, and then Lance is way out of Tristan's league. There are levels to this, bruh. There are levels to this. If we're talking tiers, and you are simply not them. And you are most certainly not him. However, we do get to see, speaking of the person who was not him himself, Tristan, who I have a deep foreboding feeling that Tristan is going to become the new Mael. And what I mean by that is if you've been around long enough in the original series, Mael, if there's any character in all of Seven Deadly Sins that get meat munched, just gobbled up, straight choking on it, slobbering all over it, there's no greater man than Mael. Mael, despite doing great character, great story arc, great suffering, I love him. I'll definitely make a video praising Mael's character and why I get people love him so much. But at least in a power and scaling context, Mael gets slopped off to oblivion for realistically very little reason. And I'm gonna think the same thing's gonna happen with Tristan for now. Because admittedly, once again, I'll even agree with y'all Tristan guys. It does not, on a fundamental level, it does not make sense for the child of the strongest goddess to ever exist and the strongest demon to ever exist to be weaker than the child of what? I'd say Glox, King, Dahlia. Then I'd say Elaine's number 4. But the 4th strongest fairy to ever exist and the 2nd strongest human to ever exist, their kid being stronger than the literal grandchild of the two deities, yeah, I get it. It is rough. It definitely seems strange, and I think Nakaba's going for that. But because of that, I can smell that Tristan is going to be like, no, but you see, Tristan, he's secretly holding back. And I'm like, no, he isn't. It's obvious. Because he even says it here himself. He's like, hey, it's only natural, Percival. Lancelot's ability is far beyond, like, remember way back when before chapter 79 obviously came, and we were like, hey, Tristan already admitted that Lance is stronger than him. And one of my biggest questions, you can even go back into my earlier reviews. That's why I love reviewing these things as they come out, because you get my live thoughts about it on the spot. You get to see how I view. One of my biggest questions was like, okay, Tristan already admitted inferiority, but how much inferiority are we talking about here? We talking about one shot level? We talking about a gap? Like, how big of a gap? And we see that Tristan was actually kind of, ironically enough, lowballing Lance and highballing himself back when he was talking to Kyan and Jade. Because he said, oh yeah, if we take our overall ability, I think Lancelot is stronger than me. I think. Now he's just straight up admitting, yeah, I'm fodder, and Lance body bags me. Which is crazy. I wonder if he did that to like keep face. Maybe this is a change by Nakaba, where maybe they were supposed to be closer in power, but then he just made Lance just leap through the roof. I don't know. But it's very interesting to see Tristan just full on admit that, yeah, Lance is just his superior. And something I do have to note is that Tristan is shockingly scrawny. Like, not scrawny in the sense of like Percival scrawny, but like straight up, I don't know, he has very little muscle definition. And I guess that's probably because of his mom. Because like, look at Melios. Melios is a short stack, but like, bro has gains out the wazoo. And it seemed to have them forever. So it's interesting that someone like Tristan is so like scrawny. I don't know why. We do get to see an interesting factoid. So apparently, up until 6 years ago, they were evenly matched. Notably, I do believe, I'm not sure, I was talking with Prince of the Lake, and I'd have to double check, but we know Lancelot's scar came from a battle that he had with Tristan when they were both 10, but we don't know who actually won the fight. So them being equals is something that is continued here. Once again, still is kind of crazy. I guess that goes to show you that Tristan's latent potential may not just be as easily accessed as Lance. Because once again, I do believe if you were to just ask me flat out who has more potential, I would say Tristan. Tristan should reasonably blow Lance and pretty much every other character in the series out of the water in terms of just raw latent power potential. But apparently no, the two were rivals, equals at that. But apparently we find out, as Nascience asks, like, yo, wait, 6 years ago, what happened to him? Lancelot, we get essentially a reiteration of what we got a few chapters ago when Lancelot was talking with Jericho. Tristan explains that Lancelot was spirited away from the kingdom of Benwick 6 years ago, but 3 years ago he returned safely as if nothing ever happened. Yet he gained terrifying new strength and magical power. So there is more of a story to that realm. Something about the... what was it called? I remember having a whole freak. 1 second, I'll be right back. The world beyond. Something happened in that world beyond that amped Lance beyond belief. And that makes me wonder, hey, is Jericho way stronger than I think she should be? Because, like, notably, a big reason that Lance had downplayed before is like, oh, we've only seen him take on fodder, holy knights. Like, it's not that crazy. He's still booty. He's just above holy knight level. Oh, hardy har. Everyone's above holy knight level. But we know that Jericho is also above holy knight level now. But what quantification is that now? Is she, due to being in the world beyond, one of Arthur's strongest knights? I don't know. If Lancelot got that much of an amp, what kind of amp did Jericho get? I don't know. It seems pretty interesting. And the thing here is that Lancelot doesn't explain anything about it. According to Tristan, he would never speak a word of what happened to him, but his strength is now comparable to that of the legendary 7 deadly sins. And that's a little bit wild. I wonder what happened in those 3 years. I'm sorry, I couldn't remix the song quick enough in my head. But interesting. Obviously, something happened there that messed with Lance. But see, the thing is, I'm not sure if it's training or anything like that, because at least if we're going by the little explanation we got in chapter 72 from Jericho, they sort of just clung together and like fought through it all. But what does that mean? What did that fighting include? How did it result in such a massive power leap? And why is Lancelot not telling anybody? Like, did he at least tell Bon and Elaine? Like, I get maybe not telling Tristan, though they seem to be brothers from another mother. Maybe there's something about it that he didn't want to tell, but why? Is there some sort of secret? Is there an oath he's bound to not tell what happened there? I genuinely don't know. But hey, if the world beyond is essentially a hyperbolic time chamber that allowed Lance to go from wherever you think 10-year-old Lance and Tristan were to legendary 7 Deadly Sin level, strong enough to bully Chaos Arthur level, or King Arthur level. I'd say Chaos Arthur not just yet, but if there's that level of power there, that level of girth from this 3 years of training in there, you know, maybe we need a 4-year time skip where the whole crew heads to the land of beyond, or the world of beyond, because obviously everyone's lacking, and that seems like a pretty solid way to level up. And admittedly, it is interesting, right? Because we see, as Tristan's talking about, he would never speak a word what happened to him. Lance is looking down on Arthur, but not with any rage or any sort of like hatred. He just looks sad. And it makes me wonder, once again, what happened in that world? Why is he reacting this way? And so much is up in the air about Lance right now. And it's good, right? Because the thing is, Nakaba, he's still dragging us along. He's still like teasing at us. And while revealing some mysteries, what Nakaba will do is he'll give you a piece of the answer to the mystery, and then he'll keep stringing you along. And that's pretty much every bit that's happened with all 4 of our knights up to this point. Lancelot, they were there somewhere in the world beyond and got stronger. How'd they get stronger? What was in the world beyond? We don't really know. Tristan, he has access to demon mode and goddess mode in some sort of hybrid mode, but the level of control over them, why he doesn't have control over them, that's still a mystery. Percival, we know that his father and grandfather worked for Arthur, but we don't know the truth about Ironside, and Ironside's whole backstory is even further elaborated on here in this chapter later on. And then look at Gawain. We know that she is the progeny of Arthur's stepbrother, but why did she run away? What's going on with that? There's so many different questions here that are really built off answers, quote unquote, to mysteries, but we're still getting more. We're still ever evolving. And I think Nakaba is very, very good at that. One would call it like being mean and just like, you're holding information from me, give it. But the way Nakaba is slowly like drip feeding it makes the overall story more interesting. And then going back and trying to find hints for what the truth really is going to be interesting once everything is revealed. So W work, Nakaba, W work. However, we do get to see that Lance finally speaks up. He's like, hey, I feel like using that right arm a little. And Arthur simply swings Carwin on. And Lance casually avoids it. He backflips high into the air and lands. And notably, Arthur immediately springs back up and lands. And I do like it. I don't know. It's interesting. I love how Nakaba does, like, in-between shots. I love how Lance just casually does a backflip off of Arthur. Meanwhile, Arthur, like, leans back into the ground and hand springs up into a standing pose. So he doesn't just fly up or levitate up. He specifically is human in his arrival and his rising. And we see that Arthur has finally got Lancelot's game. He's like, okay, understandable. The secret to your strength is mind reading, correct? And we see that Lance is like, I mean, I guess you got me. But like, get Billy that, and I believe that sometimes. And we see that Arthur goes on to explain, you have great fighting sense and reaction speed, but, and this is a big quantification thing here that's kind of crazy, but you still fall short of Meliodas' level. Despite this, you're able to block my movements because you read when to strike before I did, right? And like, here's the thing. I'm gonna need a little bit more meat on that. Like, which Meliodas are we talking about? We talking about base? We talking about base Meliodas? Because if we are talking about base Meliodas, then that means that base Meliodas could bully base Arthur. And Meliodas has 2 transformations still in the back pocket. But Arthur could be referring to Demon Mark Meliodas, because Demon Mark Meliodas is here. And the thing is, right, this is, if this were Lance's max, this would be fine. But this causes so much stuff, so much issues. And like, here before the Lance down players come. The reason this is still impressive is because, like, once again, I'm stealing an analogy from Prince of the Lake. Please go check him out. He's always in the comments. He always says, my boy. You know who he is. You see him. So, as we were talking, he was like, yeah, just because you have precog, and never to give you precog, if you didn't have the reaction speed, the precog wouldn't matter. Like, say you were to put, who has precog? So you're to put Asta up against Wally West. No amount of precog from key sensing that Asta has is going to save him from Wally West, unless he has comparable speed in order to use the precog effectively. And obviously, no amount of precog is going to lower Arthur's durability. So Lance still does have the strength and power to damage and tear apart Arthur, at least in base, which is still crazy and a different level than every other character we've seen so far. So no, heart reading does not suddenly make Lance fodder, but it is a very good ability, and it is still crazy, and he still has extremely high stats, like Arthur compliments him for. But the biggest thing is, what level of Meliodas are we talking about? Is it base? Is it demon mark? Is it assault mode? Like, can Arthur guess? Notably, he's seen assault mode Meliodas, but he's never seen, like, he doesn't have the multiplier effect in his head. Like, he doesn't know, like, the difference between a base Meliodas and an assault mode one. He's just seen the assault mode. So I don't know. That is such an interesting quantification. And notably, he says fall short. He doesn't say you're drastically weaker then. So, like, this is crazy regardless, because even being slightly weaker than base, 16 years, time skip Melly is obviously wild, because base 16 years time skip Melly can keep it with Arthur at all, and that's wild. And if it's demon mark, that's even crazier, because that means he's stronger than base Melly. And if he's stronger than base Melly, he literally dog walks 99.9% of the verse of the original series. And, like, the most wild thing is, isn't even Lance's full strength. But we'll get into that. So we move on from here, and we do get to see that Tristan's like, yo, Lance, he's getting the game, finish him right now, wipe him off the face of the planet, Lancelot, do it! Like, he's watching Cell versus Gohan, and he's Goku in the Cell games, like, finish him right now! And notably, very much akin to Super Saiyan 2 Teen Gohan, he's like, or at least Lance is like, yo, can it? I'm the one fighting here. Shut up. You're fodder. Sit down. You worthless piece of trash. You're a fodder. How dare you waste your blood like that? Your bottomless potential? More like booty potential. Get out of here. I'm taking your sword, by the way, and I'm going to break it, because I don't care. I'm better than you in every single way, shape, and form. You're fodder. You're garbage. You're booty water. Goodbye. And I think he literally just does snatch away Tristan's sword. Like, I'm not sure which one it is. His swords are named Esterosa and Mael for Esterosa and Mael. But he literally, like, snatches the blade over, kicks it up into his hand, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to borrow your sword, okay? And notably, when Lance says he's going to borrow your sword, you're never getting the sword again. It's like borrowing food from somebody. Unless they plan to pay you back sometime in the future, you're never getting that food again. And interestingly enough, we see that Lance with a sword in his hand is enough to make Arthur advance on him. Like, Arthur's like, whoa, wait a minute, let me get up on his face. However, Lance then proceeds to point the blade at Arthur, which immediately sends him retreating backwards. Bro, oh wait, actually no, he does start retreating backwards instantly, which is crazy. Once again, base Arthur, admittedly this is just base Arthur, thinks Lancelot is such a threat that the idea of him even getting a weapon forces him to retreat. Dog, like, I get it, he may fall short of Meliodas and all that, but, like, Meliodas was willing to throw hands with Arthur, and Arthur was willing to throw hands with Meliodas. But Arthur is just genuinely backing up. He looks serious. Like, I don't know, I get it, I trust Arthur on this one, but, wow, like, either Meliodas was suppressing himself drastically for some, I mean, that's the thing, right? Arthur seems to have Meliodas in this weird 50-50 where he's trying to be Arthur's forced Meliodas to be stupid enough that Meliodas is like, no, I'm still going to save you. I won't let you fall to darkness, Arthur. Obviously a bit too late for that. There's a whole prophecy about that, bro. Maybe you shouldn't hold back. So I guess that's maybe why Meliodas is, like, not too pressing to Arthur. Meanwhile, Lancelot just seems all about the business. Like he is ready for action. There's no mercy in his eyes. There's no patience in his game. He's just there toying, disrespecting, and bullying. So it's crazy to think that, hypothetically, if Lance is being referred to weaker than base Meliodas, which I think could be a fair assumption. If base or demon mark, then let's say demon mark, just for the sake of charitability to Lance. That means a demon mark Mel could have 100% done the exact same thing to Arthur. He just didn't. Meaning an assault mode Mel would absolutely eviscerate and body bag and seal this Arthur, which he hasn't. It just goes to show you Meliodas' character flaw kicking in again, which is unfortunate. It's probably going to end up with his death. But we'll see. And we do get to see that Lance uses Shining Road. And admittedly, I wonder, like, maybe the reason it's all curly and swirled is because Arthur was just casually dodging about. But it's really interesting that the Shining Road didn't just take a straight path to Arthur. It looks like it did a whole bunch of spinning and swirling. I wonder if that's just how it charges up. And again, no, we've seen it like straight shot before, so interesting. However, we do get to see that base Arthur looks upon Shining Road, and not only does it catch him, meaning he can't escape it, but two, it's a blast that just generally consumes him. And I'm not sure what the difference in the quality of weapon is. Like, the end of Carwinon did a similar size blast, but I wonder if a whole blade would do any difference here in terms of just output power. And notably, I wonder if this counts for the 10 times amp? Like, Lance said when you coat weapons in Magic, you get the 10 times amp. So is using the sword as a guiding point providing the 10 times amp? Or is this literally just Lance's raw magic? Because if it's Lance's raw magic, and then he could hypothetically infuse Shining Road into his blade, and then get a 10 times amp? Whew, bro's crazy. However, we do get to see that with this massive plume of smoke, Meliodas is looking on, everyone else is getting blown back, which once again goes to show you Meliodas is like raw steak and power here. He's like the only one out of all of our observers to actually just casually stand there and look on, and you can tell once again he's worried for Arthur, because he goes, Arthur, like he didn't want to do this. And once again, I think that is going to be Meliodas' downfall. You are really going to need Lance and probably Bon and really go through, like, people who respect Arthur and understand his position, but realize that nah, Brody's not a kid anymore. Bro's 32 and a threat. We're gonna have to take care of him. And immediately we see that what I assume to be Mael breaks. Like, it just shatters after the use of Shining Road. And while Gawain is in pure shock, Donnie notes, because he remembers his own blade, that the sword shattered again. And we get to see that Donnie has a missing text box or a missing text bubble. I don't think it's a smoke cloud. I think he's supposed to have something there, but maybe it'd be just like a translation error. However, we do get to see that for the first time, I think pretty much ever, we actually get to see Lance shocked. Like his, well, except for that time where he had that weird freak out with Guinevere. That's another story for another time. But he actually seems genuinely shocked by sensing power. And notably, as he senses it, we see that a voice says, "You have fine talent." And then, once again, for the first time, Lance actually gets uppercut. Notably, though, he doesn't take any damage from said uppercut. He just gets hit, which is, once again, crazy. It goes to show you how durable Lance is. Like, he obviously, if he didn't have the raw stats to take this, he would have been splattered everywhere, but he didn't. He just ate it with no damage. And notably, we get to see that as Arthur hit Lancelot, one, his eyes are fully darkened, meaning he is using chaos power. Assumedly, two, that's the thing, I'm not sure if it's its limit. We don't know what the limit of chaos power is and like what signifies that. But at least back when his eyes were fully dark in the original series, that was like chaos power full on, full active. So even with chaos full on, full active and acting, and what we soon learn to find out is self-defense, it still can't really damage Lance that much. And we see, notably, as Arthur swings with this strange arm, the prosthetic arm, the one that had Cath on it, emblazed onto it, falls from his arm, falls from his body. And we see Percival scream, "Lancelot!" And another hand reaches up and smacks, just hard smacks Lancelot down. It is a gigantic hand. And we get to see that, in surprising contrast, unlike Lance, who got admittedly blitzed and smacked around, when Meliodas lunges in, he does actually get to react to and block and kick away a lot of the attacks. Sure, he's pushed back, he's forced to block, but notably he doesn't take any damage, for one, and two, he is able to prepare himself for the next strike, unlike Lancelot. So, seemingly, if I were to do a hypothetical scale, base Lance is lower than this Arthur, and base Mel is relative to this Arthur. So base Mel is above this base Lance that Arthur assessed. So seemingly his assessment of Lancelot goes towards this, what the Lancelot he saw, versus base Meliodas. Interesting. And we see that after Meliodas blocked everything, he wields Lost Fane, and he says, "Arthur, wasn't your right arm a warning for your own naivete and weakness?" And then that point's brought up. The right arm. You know, that thing that we saw him literally drop. So why would Meliodas be asking about the right arm unless something was there with the right arm? I wonder. And we do get to see that Arthur, once again, with the fully blacked out eyes. And what I do like, though, if as much as I feel iffy about Arthur not really being Arthur and him actually being manipulated by some other external creature, which just happens to be Chaos or Kath within him, I do like the almost insane personality that comes out when he uses the dark eyes, like the won't you let this slide? Like the almost mania that seems to come forth whenever he uses such deep power. And notably, I think it works, right? Because like, give any human the powers of a literal creator or deity, and yeah, they'd probably go a little bit nuts too. So it makes sense to see Arthur gets influenced by this power, because it's probably like nigh on all-consuming, especially consider the leap of power that Arthur went through. Sure, he's had 16 years with the power, so technically he's had it for as long as he's been alive at this point. But still, like, he obviously suppresses himself most of the time, and with that suppression probably comes a natural, like, weaning off of it. Like, he's not necessarily addicted to the power, but every time he uses it, it drives him a little bit more crazy, which I do like. However, Okay, Naka, we need to talk about, like, we need an intervention, bro. Like, if you what is this? How do you, like, there are a lot of cases where I will look at a piece of art that is 100% original, right? No ref, no nothing. And I genuinely sit back in my chair or lay back further on my bed, or do anything, stand up, I will then immediately just begin to ponder, what on earth? What could hypothetically, conceivably make you draw this? And this is the exact feeling I got when I saw Arthur's arm. Because what in the fang foom is this, bruh? What in the Marvel Dragon, like, what? How do you conceive this? How do you mentally conceive this and then put it to a page? Like, hypothetically, there are some things you could do, but you shouldn't. I think this is one of them. I think this perfectly qualifies for something that Nakaba should just not have done. He could have removed it from the narrative, and I don't think anyone would have complained. What? Like, it is so disgusting. Like, notably, we've seen the top creature before. It's the same thing that got in Ironside's guts and removed all the poisons that Nasian's put into him. But it still doesn't help that it's disgusting. It's this weird, multi-mouthed, woman-esque, multi-eyeballed, weird, skelly back thing with a woman's body and seemingly, like, I don't even know. And then you get to see the earthen hand looks fine. Like I'm not even, like, the one hand I don't necessarily care about at all. It looks like a normal hand that's just made of earth. But then we got Schnuckles the echidna over here with these weird fleshy dreads and the weird mouth and no eyes. Like, it looks disgusting. And admittedly, it does look kind of cool, though. It kind of reminds me of Davy Jones from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. But still, it looks so weird and nasty and grotesque. And then you have the weird amalgam thing. Like, you have this thing that seems to have a face inside of its mouth, and it has all these tiny little like, what does that feel like? What does that even feel like? Notably, I've never had an extra body part. Shock horror, but, you know, those aren't too common, and I don't necessarily ever have the ability to just readily get my hands on those. So I'm stuck here looking at this and wondering, like, is all this connected to his nervous system? Is all this his brain? I don't think so. But even still, it's attached to his body. This popped out of where his right arm should be. And it just looks like I couldn't even, like, he seems so calm about it too. Like, oh yeah, look at my right arm. You know, I use it a lot, you know, because it gets a little lonely up in Camelot. But like, with that being the case, I don't know. But I'm sorry, I've kind of just been hurling over the design. Let's talk about what Arthur says here. He says, chaos is only here subconsciously English. Chaos is only here to subconsciously protect me, its host. The death of its host would mean the loss of where it belongs. It has nothing to do with my will. It's more like an inherent will without will. That's why not even he, not even Lancelot, could read its movements. But Meliodas could, he could react. So base Mel above base Lance. But the thing here is, right, beyond a shadow of a doubt, like, so chaos is there. Chaos is 100% there. We know this. We know this for a fact now. Chaos is there as a separate will inside of Arthur. It did not just become a will that is 100% subservient to be his power. With that being the case, it is still entirely possible. Remember, chaos was described as a will. I would love to believe what Arthur's saying here, like a will without a will, but in actuality, we know chaos had certain intentions, and if this is what chaos manifests itself as, ew. So is this technically all made of human flesh? Because Arthur notes that this is just chaos's vessel. The host's body. So like, is all of this made of the same texture as Arthur's body? And if so, ew. Like, I genuinely am at a loss for words, even though I've been talking for so long. I just can't take my eyes off of it. Like it's so crazy. And I know it's a thumbnail. I know for a fact it's a thumbnail. But like, it's nuttily disgusting. Like, I don't know what possessed Nakaba to do it. And now with chaos being chaos, I really question the sanctity of that thing. However, moving on, we do get to see that Meliodas brings up a very interesting point here. Meliodas claims that he should have cut chaos away from Arthur no matter what would have happened, which is implying he's talking about 16 years ago, which implies that, I'm assuming this would be the limit of his power. So I'm going to say Assault Mode Mel could have torn Arthur and Chaos apart way back when. And of course, you can tell they probably weren't perfectly fused at that point. It doesn't get perfectly fused until later. But still, even with that, the idea that he could do that at all with his level of power, and he's confident that he could have done it. Like, he should have done it. Like, he's saying, oh, that was something I could have done in the past and I should have done then. Interesting. Very, very interesting. I mean, who knows? Like, personally, I don't think the Supreme Deity and the Demon King are as strong as Chaos. So we know their hacks combined could seal Chaos. And I still have a stupid little headcanon that was the Great Fairy Tree that made the Hawkmama body. Because it was made of moss. And of course, the Supreme Demon and Supreme Demon King. That's the fusion. When Arthur revives them, that'll be their name. But the Supreme Deity and the Demon King, they made worlds, so they could obviously make a moss cage. But still, my stupid little headcanon that the begrudging little brother was like, no, I refuse to let you take away my fairy people, and then made a whole moss body. But still, interesting. And it's also interesting that Meliodas seems to have no fear of Schnuckles the echidna that's chomping right next to him. So, and the craziest thing is, he's still in base. Meliodas has not taken this seriously yet. He flickered on Demon Mark for half a second and hasn't even gotten a taste of Assault Mode. Meanwhile, Arthur is now just chilling with Chaos activated. I don't know. I'm assuming, once again, there's got to be a higher level to Arthur's power here, or else it's just kind of wild that characters like Mel is literally just existing next to Chaos Arthur and is fine. I don't know. This could just be upscaling for the Sins, and I made a video. Talking about the King's Might. How 16 years with the right training, the right circumstances, and based on everything previously, Mel may have just become that guy. And looks like this may be becoming true. However, we do get to see that due to how big Arthur's right hand is, it's sort of cornered everybody. Like, everyone together is sort of in their own little worlds with this chaos thing. And Nazians and Percival are wondering, is this real? Is this an illusion? Are we dreaming? And stuff like that. However, Arthur forgot one thing. You don't look away from the guy you're fighting. And Lance proceeds to walk up and is like, wow, okay, interesting stuff. You're finally taking this serious. Now, with that being the case, I don't know, don't get me wrong, but Arthur should be using some percentage of his real power here. So whatever happens, while Arthur's using a percentage of his real strength here. And we see that everyone is shocked to find that, everyone except Meliodas, ironically enough, is shocked to find that Lancelot is just fine. To be fair, you could see it. He may have gotten blitzed, but he didn't take any damage. And Arthur's like, wow, you're still alive. Do you understand now the difference between our abilities? And once again, I know he came to test them. This could still hypothetically be a clone or an illusion or something like that. But it seems like Arthur's kind of just here, and this is him. And we see that Lancelot, in response to the question, now that he's facing down Chaos Arthur, this is Chaos King Arthur, wielding some portion of the power of chaos properly, Lance, he switches up, he gets into a battle stance, and notably, he switches seemingly his dominant hand, like he was wielding everything left-handed before, but then he switches his position, and now his right hand goes up by his chin as he flares with a magical aura, like he just powered up. And one, I guess that just goes to show you the right hand is always stronger than the left, but two, this causes Arthur to tremble in fear, like legitimately. His hair rises up while he still has the chaos eyes out. Meaning Lancelot's power increase here was such a notable difference, was such a girthy threat, that Arthur, with his chaos eyes, using his chaotic powers, was still shooketh. If Lancelot, if you still somehow, in the depths of your heart, do not believe that Lancelot is him, I don't know how. But this is what throws the entire thing earlier into contention again. Because if a casual suppressed Lance is weaker than a casual suppressed Melly, then that's fine. But how strong is this Lance? What level of power is Arthur using here? Is he using all of chaos? I doubt it. I want to doubt it. I really want to doubt it. Because this is the thing, right? With Lance being this powerful, I made a whole video talking about it. I'm really wondering about the plot from this point on, because still nothing here has, at least so far, has said that this isn't the real Arthur. This is a clone of Arthur. Something's up with Arthur. Like, nothing here is justifying this. We're seeing what seems to be Arthur freaking out at Lance's power. And we see that Donnie is blown away because he notices that the thing that was plaguing him gets knocked away. And Nazians is just blown away. He's like, the force of his magic is incredible. And notably Nazians is standing right next to Chaos Arthur. And he's saying that Lance's magical force is crazy. What is Lance right now, bro? What happened in those 3 years? And we see Tristan loudly declare, if anyone can beat him, he can. And, he is just him. So we do get to see that these two powerhouses now face off against each other. And unfortunately, we don't necessarily get to see the two conflict immediately, because all the humans of Leonis begin to scream and look up at the sky. And within the sky, within the heavens, we see a very interesting looking battleship. Or it's at first mistaken for a giant monster, but no, it's a battleship, or a flying ship, not necessarily a battleship. And it has a very interesting design. It seems, once again, ironically enough, more Demon Clan based than Goddess based. Like, you can argue the main center point is Goddess Clan based, but interesting. Like, and the thing is, it is a ship. Like, it looks like a warship. It has cannons, it has masts, but like, I don't know. How's it flying? How's it levitating? Who's driving the darn thing? Is it Merlin? Like, what is this ship, and how big is it? Big is it? I swear I speak English, I swear. But how big is it to the point where all these knights are fitting on top of it? Because we do get to see that somehow, some way, people are able to perceive that there are people on it. And we see that Pelio and Dreyfus immediately recognize them. They notice that the people on the ship are Camelot's holy knights of chaos. And notably, we have quite the interesting crowd here. We only recognize two of them, though. We recognize Ironside, who is, ironically enough, leading the charge, and Mortlock. The rest of these knights are a mystery here. And we see that Ironside has pulled up and he's like, yo, Big Papa, no disrespect, but you've played around long enough. Please return at once. And once again, see, this is the thing. Nakaba is so fond of causing us headaches. Like, I know Nakaba couldn't care. He couldn't give a hoot about scaling. Like, I remember everyone in the scaling community, at least on the scaling side of Seven Deadly Sins, was super excited for the last data book. We were hoping for some juicy, crucial information and stuff like that. Maybe learning more about the sizes of worlds and stuff like that. Nakaba gave us a whole bunch of information we already knew in the final data book for Seven Deadly Sins. He did not care. He did not give a hoot about who was stronger than who. None of that. It was all irrelevant information that was already in the manga. So he obviously likes to mess with us on the scaling front. And this is the thing here. Ironside, I'm not sure if he's been watching or anything. Like, what does he know? But he strictly says, all right, Your Majesty, you've played around long enough. Not you fought long enough. Not you've done enough damage. Nothing like that. You've played around. So Arthur's just been having fun. So what percentage is he using? How genuine are his reactions? Like, what's the point here? I'm really sitting here wondering, where are we going from here? How powerful is Arthur really? Because with this being Ironside saying, Your Majesty, assumingly this isn't a clone. This is him. This is Arthur. This isn't an illusion. This is him. It is Arthur. It is his men. They're all here right now. So all of our hypothetical worries about Lance being too strong may just be getting affirmed here, because this appears to be the real Arthur. And we see that Arthur responds is like, "Aw, you came all the way from Camelot just to lecture me, Lord Ironside. How sweet." And once again, this is happening in the middle of the battle. Like, Lance and Arthur were just about to throw down. But no, we immediately turn to this. And we now find out that even the Chaos Knights here are like, yo, boss, I respect your hustle. I respect that you have the unbelievable charismatic swagger of a chaotic madman. However, you know this, just as we know this. A full-scale conflict here and now would be unwise. And you can feel it. And that's interesting, right? Because, notably, we still don't know how strong the Chaos Knights are. We don't know how strong Arthur is. We don't know what... Like, win cons against Arthur. Meliodas is a win con against Arthur if he's as strong as Arthur is here. Seal him away. We know that Chaos is vulnerable to sealing because of what happened with the Supreme Deity and the Demon King. And we know Meliodas has access to sealing because of what he did to Gelda. So with that being the case, does that mean that... Like, why would you not start full-scale war right here, right now, when all the allies are separated? Like, notably, to give some more elaboration, get some more hype, Arthur says yes, he agrees with Ironside here, that a conflict here and now would be unwise. Arthur agrees, because he senses in Dalfair, Benwick, and the Fairy King's Forest, in those three places, he senses powerful aggression. And notably, we see everyone of the remaining sins that are not on Arthur's side. So Merlin isn't shown here, but we see Gother wielding a bit of his invasion magic, though shockingly enough, not Herod. He doesn't have the twin bow out at all. He's just standing there with his invasion magic, which, interesting. We had to see Bond, who seems to be standing on top of Benwick, with Corchus at hand, so he could pull off something crazy. And then we get to see Diane and King for the first time in forever. And they are wielding the spear and Gideon. Notably, the spear does look different, but I'm going to just chalk that up to Nakaba not putting too much detail into it, because it's a 1 of 3 background shot. And who knows, maybe the spear just got different. But with that being the case, like, does Arthur think he'd really lose right now? Like, hypothetically, if he were to engage in full-scale battle. While he seems mostly fine, he's fully healed and all that, and I don't think he can get tired, wouldn't the best course of action be to engage while everyone is weakened and tired from the previous encounters? Why not spawn some more chaos people and just go wild here? It's interesting that Arthur thinks a full-scale war right here, right now would not be worth it. Maybe he's really that afraid of the Lance and Meliodas combo here, and obviously he's worried about the other sins showing up. But I don't know, that's crazy. And it's amazing to see that the sins still have this much presence and can strike this much fear in Arthur's heart. They are nowhere near Leonis. Dalflair is a whole mountain range away. We have no idea how far Benwick is. And shoot, the Fairy King's Forest, they may be attacking from another realm as far as we know. So with that being the case, it's crazy to think that Arthur, with all of his power, all of his wisdom, all his control, still is like, no, we cannot fight them right here, right now. And I'm assuming that means they need to get stronger. But how much stronger is Arthur's going to get? And how much stronger is Knight's going to get? There's so many questions raised by this interaction alone. And it really makes me wonder about Arthur and about scaling and how much we can do about this. So much interesting, juicy stuff is coming out of this. And we do get to see that people actually begin to ask about something. And that something is Camelot. People ask, does it really exist? Camelot? I want to go. So do I. And note, this is very interesting. This doesn't seem to be anything King's Authority wise. We know that Arthur does not have the blades flexing right now. But the idea of Camelot alone in that brief little advertisement, you know, that skippable ad that everybody got? Yeah. That was enough to bring hope away from Leonis and bring it towards Camelot. However, the interesting thing is, we do get to see that Anne is completely unaffected by this. Even though, hypothetically, she should have seen her mother in there, it didn't matter. And she straight up says, what are you saying? They're the ones who attacked this country, remember? And notably, the humans there look away and are sheepish. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, but, you know, that's a nice benefits package they got there. And Anne is so angrily standing up for the people who are risking their lives for these common folk who are now trying to betray the kingdom. And once again, Prince of the Lake said this first, so I'm not going to take credit for it. But it looks like maybe the theft of hope in this scenario, in this prophecy of Bartra's in particular, wasn't the theft of Percy, wasn't the theft of anyone important, wasn't the death of anybody important, but simply the hope that Leonis could win now vanishes, or is slowly being chipped away at by the entirety of Camelot and all that it stands for. And with that being the case, people like Percy are going to get weaker because they do not have as many people believing in them as possible. Very, very interesting ramifications. I'm not sure if this is how the prophecy is going to play out, but I wouldn't be shocked. Maybe it isn't. Who knows? However, we do get to see that apparently Arthur is somewhat tied into Camelot, which makes me think a majority of his power is stored there. Like, hypothetically, if this isn't a clone, if it isn't an illusion, I do think there's a whole, like, Horcrux situation going on here, or, like, commandment / grace thing, where their power was just spread everywhere. And it seems like in order to maintain his land of the living, Arthur must keep himself anchored or something like that to the land of the living. And thusly, I'm assuming if Arthur to ever be sealed or even hypothetically somehow perish, whatever he does in Camelot that keeps certain people alive or keeps... See, I'm not sure if this is a translation thing, because Ironside says, if something happened to your majesty, what would become of those living at the edge of Camelot? Living on the edge at Camelot? I legitimately don't know. Like, does he genuinely, does he go to the capital of the dead and just, like, pluck people out of there? Like, is that really how that works? I mean, I guess maybe, I don't know. It seems so strange, but apparently living on the edge of Camelot is reliant on Arthur's existence, which makes me believe that Arthur probably can't use his true power unless he's in Camelot. So we're probably still seeing a nerfed Arthur here, which does make more sense. But it's very interesting, right? Because when bringing up the people on the edge of Camelot, people who are relying on Arthur's existence, Arthur brings up the fact that that's not a fair thing to say. Doesn't that same thing apply to you? So does that mean that Ironside himself is on the edge of life and death and he needs Arthur around in order to stay alive? Or does that mean that Ironside has someone who he cares about that's on the edge of life and death, on the edge of Camelot, who he needs Arthur to stick around to stay alive? I don't know. It's a very, very weird situation. This whole back half of the chapter just makes everything so much more wonky and bonkers, simply put. But we do get to see that Arthur is not playing any games with Ironside. He has the Chaos Eyes out, and we know with the Chaos Eyes out, he is more than willing to do things that are not the most pleasant to Ironside. And he's like, hey, I gave you a specific mission, did I not? What are you doing here? Trying to die? And Ironside's like, oh, rest assured. If that is what concerns you, I've already reached my objective. And, what? Like, now, I'm only going off what I know of my little paltry knowledge on Arthurian mythology and what we know of Guinevere. Guinevere said she was going to be disappearing soon, or like tomorrow or something like that. But one, it's not tomorrow. And two, did Ironside get her already? Does he already have Gwen? And if so, when? Where? When was he in Leonis? Like, and where is Pelgard? Like, Pelgard nor Jericho seem to be here. I don't see the Star Visor Knight and or the Black Knight on this group of people with this vessel. I just see Mortlock and Ironside. So, what's going on here? What is happening? Legitimately, what is happening? Because does that mean he got the wrong wife? Or did he end up picking up Gwen and now there's going to be a whole issue with that? I genuinely don't know. There are so many questions here and I'm really wondering. And we see that the moment Ironside declares that, Arthur's totally fine with leaving. Like he says, why didn't you say so? All right, I'm coming back with. It implies that this whole thing was a diversion. Like, he's like, oh, well, if you had just said that, I'd leave already. So he did this to distract everybody. But he said he was coming here to assess the Four-Knight. I don't know. This whole back half of the chapter is just unbelievably weird and mysterious. And we get to see that Arthur shouldn't have just stood around having a casual conversation when he was facing down someone who was more than willing to get him up out of here. Because, yeah, Arthur literally gets a hand through his chest. And it was so cool and it was so metal that, yes, I had to draw it. And we see that even his knights somehow believe that this is a bad thing. Like, Mortlock screams out, Majesty! And Ironside's like, hey, prepare to return without delay. And notably, we get to see that despite what happened, Arthur speaks. He's like, Sir Meliodas, I'll see you soon. Today yielded a better harvest than expected. Thanks to you, my awareness has changed greatly. Which once again implies he's suppressed himself. What I'm assuming, I'll get into it in the end. But he says, thanks to you, my awareness has changed greatly. When I learned of you four knights of the apocalypse, I thought you as something to add spice to my boring days. But here, today, I declare war. Notably, the ship disappears as he says this. A war to hunt down all four knights of the apocalypse and their allies, and eradicate them. King Arthur declares war. The story enters a new phase. It's definitely been made clear to their enemy, Arthur. There are four knights of the apocalypse in this land. And next chapter, the battle is over. So we are winding down on this arc. And here's the thing, right? If I had to make a guess, if I had to throw Arthur a bone here and say that no, somehow Chaos Arthur is not just fodder who can get his chest ripped through by Lancelot and also just can't damage Lancelot even with the Chaos Arm, like all that. If I were to make a justification, I'm going to assume when Arthur leaves Camelot, he can only leave with a certain portion of his power because he needs the rest of that power to maintain Camelot as it is and sort of maintain all the people that he has there that are dwindling on the edge of Camelot, on the edge of life and death, on the edge of dreams and reality, such as Ironside and whoever else is there. And because of that, this Arthur is nowhere near the full capacities of the Arthur that we will see when we invade Camelot, which is what I assume is going to happen. However, with that being the case, it makes me wonder how much stronger Arthur is going to get and how much deeper his powers are going to go. Because notably, the big meaty flesh arm and the gigantic mega ship, while they're cool, this is still nowhere near to what Arthur was doing before when he was literally popping out alternate worlds. Even Kath did better than this. So I'm excited to see Arthur's true full potential. Overall, the chapter has some pretty big notes. One, Lance is him, to like multiple stages of him. Weaker than Meliodas supposedly, but then he has a new level of power that even shakes Chaos Arthur. Crazy. We get the whole idea that Lance, once again, he cannot use any weapon. He's going to need a sacred treasure tier weapon. Could that hypothetically be a fairy spear? A spirit spear, if you will? You know, hypothetically, he's not a royal fairy, but he could hypothetically get one from Dabuzu. You know, maybe that's the whole next arc. Number 3, we have the idea that the war is truly beginning now. Like, we were in this loose idea that there was a war going on between Leonis and Camelot because of how the two were acting towards each other, their general threats. But now it seems like if there was a war, it's no longer between Camelot and Leonis. It's now between Arthur and the four Knights of the Apocalypse. Obviously, this also brings up the fact that the Sins themselves are still a genuine threat to Arthur. He still believes that fighting them all is not his best course. It's not his best recourse. He needs allies, or he needs abilities strong enough to combat them, which makes me wonder how strong they are now, if they're stronger than before, and if so, how much so. So much has happened. So much has happened. There's so much. I already know there are going to be a couple videos just discussing this in of itself. Lance is also apparently right-handed. That's something. But so many questions. I'm very intrigued to see where we're going to go from here. Obviously, next chapter will be a wind-down chapter. And I got to say, this chapter was chef's kiss. Perfect. I don't think I could add anything to it. I wouldn't take anything away. The mystery it sets up, the power scaling it gives us, the power scaling it takes away from us and complicates, everything here is gorgeous. However, that's what I think. Please tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that the notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do a Patreon down below. You can support for as low as $1 a month. Get exclusive videos, early content, and more. Also, thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Back on the Pencil, writing off.